Welcome back to the This Week in Fantasy series. My name is Venomous Stare, your returning host, and this week, joining me, fresh off of a big win, and by big win I mean the first one of the season, it's Ben King of Funny Rogers. Ben, how are you doing?
Doing great after that one win. Might be my only one, but it was against Spencer, so that's really a victory for my entire season.
Well, if we go ahead and look at last week, even though you did lose to me the week before that, you beat Spencer and you put up 120. It was by far your best week. Can you go ahead and talk about that game briefly, because that was a very important game for Spencer and you?
To be fair, it was a really close contest. It took me until Monday, or I guess Sunday night, for me to get the actual results. But Spencer's team just, even on its best day, I feel like is barely going to pass 80, 90 points. It's not a very good roster that he has. So even with my crappy roster, I was able to score 120 and edge him out just a bit. But maybe Spencer will be able to turn it around. I don't know. He has been able to work magic in the past, so I wouldn't put it past him.
Going into last week's games, we're of course going to review all of them. I think we should start with Spencer again to sort of continue our train of thought on him and his team, because he put up 51. That might be the lowest amount of points he's ever put up in the history of fantasy football in this league. And looking at his team performance, his defense and kicker got double digits, and so did his quarterback, but everyone else was pretty awful, sub 5 points. So
His defense was his leading scorer this game.
Yeah. What do you think?
That tells you.
Yeah, really. What do you think about Spencer versus No Fraud?
Honestly, I wish Spencer would have won this, considering No Fraud's in my division. And Mark has always been a good owner, good competitive, always makes transactions, always has a good lineup out there. So I was hoping there might be some hope for Spencer, but Russell Wilson just completely went off against the Browns. And honestly, that and Kerryon Johnson, his performance for 12 points, that and Ingram 13, that's what kind of propelled him forward. But I mean, when your opponent scores 51, you don't really need much, as we all know.
Yeah, Russell Wilson really took it to Cleveland. The Browns look absolutely atrocious, sort of funny to see after all the hype they got preseason. But looking at Spencer's team right now, Ben, what do you think? Does he have any chance at all of sneaking in the playoffs?
Well, considering he's the same record as I am, and all the divisions right now, except for one, are basically locked up, which is the one that he's in. So he does have a shot, because Clap 4 he has a lead in that division, but it's not unsurmountable. I mean, there's a chance, but not with this team. If there was anyone else in that division that probably could, I don't think it's this team. He's got Hillman in there, which is worthless now because Barkley is back. Brown did nothing. Winston had one of the worst games of his career, and it wasn't even on American soil. Zach Ertz had a major underperforming game. He's one of the most consistent tight ends that fantasy football has seen in a long time, and he had a bad game. Cooper Cuckold, one of my favorites, only got 17 yards, which was a game where LA only scored 7 the entire game. So I guess you can't really put it all on him. And like we said, his defense was his leading scorer, and his kicker was his second leading scorer with 13. And looking at his bench, Shady McCoy for the Chiefs, splitting time. Ronald Jones splitting time with Peyton Barber, who I own. I did fail to realize that he does have Barkley, so that's why he did have Hillman. I do apologize for that, but he will get one of his best players back. But I do not think that's going to be enough to propel him into the playoffs.
Well, everyone was predicting Barkley would be out for 6 to 8 weeks, and it turns out it's just going to be 2 or 3 weeks for him to return. But Spencer still wasn't able to weather the storm. I can't imagine how bad it would have been if Saquon had been out as long as initially predicted.
I mean, Saquon could have scored 30 that game if he was playing last week, and he still would have lost. So
true that. All right, let's move on to the Watson Bowl. We have Clap 4 narrowly defeating Cam here.
Good game. Really close, narrow game.
Yeah, very, very interesting. To me, Cameron's lack of receiver, too, is just brutal. He was starting Humphreys of the Titans for a while, and now he's on Sanu, who's not very good. He's starting a fucking Miami Dolphin, which is never a good sign.
Oof, no. Unless if it's Tua, whenever they draft Tua next year, that's the only Dolphin that I want.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake isn't even start-worthy, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
But looking at this game, Nick Chubb, after I talked shit about him, has stepped up multiple weeks in a row. He's done decent. But my commentary on Nick Chubb was more about the Browns as a whole than Nick Chubb specifically. The Browns had
I talked shit too, but Nick Chubb scored 36 points against me whenever I played.
That's true. He had a good week, but the Browns are absolutely reeling. The Browns just look terrible. They just can't beat anybody.
Yeah. I'm not going to say they're terrible, but I'm going to say that they've obviously underperformed because they still have the talent. I'm not saying they're going to go to the playoffs, but fantasy-wise, there are still some players that have some pretty good value. Considering Baker Mayfield is a better player this year in fantasy than my quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And in the past, we would laugh at that. That's the reality.
Man, that says a lot about Rodgers, doesn't it?
It does.
I think it's interesting that Evan Ingram didn't even play this game and Cameron still lost. Melvin Gordon really let him down here. Cameron put a lot of eggs in the basket of Melvin Gordon, and when Gordon finally comes back, he's gotten less than 5 both times. If Melvin Gordon doesn't really step up, Cameron's just going to get ripped to shreds during these bye weeks.
I agree. Especially, like you said, the bye weeks are going to really kill him without the depth that he really needs to win games. And I'm just looking at his team. I'm looking at that game. It's kind of unlucky for Cam for many reasons, but his kicker, Greg Zuerlein, only got 1 point, which on most days kickers average at least 4 or 5. And if he would have gotten 3 or 4 more points, he would have actually won the game.
Yeah, I think every Ram except for Cooper Kupp is drastically underperforming their preseason expected value. The Rams.
100%. Gurley, Goff, Woods, Brandon Cooks. They're all just underperforming right now.
Yeah, I think that this year is sort of exposing Sean McVay. People have had an entire offseason to figure out his flashy little motion sets. And I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but he's not God reincarnate like we were led to believe throughout the entirety of last season when his flashy little offense was decimating defenses. And now the Rams really look pretty bad. They look like a team that's struggling, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, or if they do, they'll limp into the wild card game, 9-7.
But isn't it crazy, though? 5-6 years ago, whenever the Rams were relying on Steven Jackson for their entire franchise, when they were in still St. Louis, and now they're in LA and they're actually relevant. It is kind of crazy how that franchise has turned around.
Yeah,
regardless of how they did this year.
The entire scope of California football is sort of sickening when you think about it. You have the San Diego Chargers playing in a soccer stadium to a team full of other teams' fans, and just as always, they underperform, play down to their competition, and disappoint every year. You have
you said San Diego, my sir. It's the LA Chargers.
No, I know, but the San Diego Chargers moving to LA. They're playing in a soccer stadium, for God's sake. You can't call them the LA Chargers yet. And then,
that's true.
And then you have the Oakland Raiders. We call them Las Vegas. Well, they don't even have they don't even have a place to play in Vegas. So until they sign a fucking lease, as Ari would say, no, I motherfucking cannot call them the Las Vegas.
I'm pretty sure their stadium is going to be built by the time next year rolls around.
Maybe. I just knew they were having a lot of trouble finding places to play in this offseason. This preseason rather. They had to go up and play a joke game in an 80-yard field in Canada. And I just feel like this whole moving out of the smaller West Coast cities to try to jam as much bullshit into LA is sort of sickening. You're abandoning the Oakland fans, you're abandoning the San Diego fans, just you can have everything in LA. Everyone wants to be so Hollywood. Look at LeBron.
And I do agree with that. But at the same time, I do love the move of them moving to Las Vegas because I think that is insanely intriguing to think that the area where, it's just, we all know Las Vegas is just a city in the middle of the desert. And now it's going to be not only the sports capital of the world because of the betting, but now they're actually going to have their own football franchise along with a good hockey franchise. So, I mean, I'm all for it. And Oakland can go suck the Warriors' dicks for more years if they want. Like, they should have gotten an actual stadium other than the Oakland Coliseum, because it's a god awful venue. Same with the Athletics. So I'm all for it, but I do agree that the whole moving the Chargers to LA and the Rams to LA and the whole like LeBron, yeah, let's get it all Hollywood, and yeah, the whole West Coast revival. It's kind of sickening in a way because it was so forced upon us.
Well, and you see so much mainstream dick ride too. Oh, where is this free agent going to go? Oh, it's LA. He wants to come play out in Hollywood. And then you see LeBron's first season, and it looks like he has his mind on Hollywood through the entire first season. It looks like he checked out. To me, nothing could be more funny than seeing LeBron miss the playoffs for the remainder of his career. Now in the NBA, 8 teams get to go, so that'll probably never happen. But
they have Anthony Davis, so I think
which is fine. Exactly, like with AD, they'll at least be able to limp into a 7th or 8th spot. But man, would it be funny to see LeBron get into all those Eastern Conference Finals and then not even make the Western Conference playoffs multiple years in a row. But hey, this is a football show, so let's move on. We have Zeke of Nature, aka Christian, beating Jackson by about 50. Jackson falling down to 2-4. Seagouch after a rough start going up to 4-2. Seagouch looking pretty good. What do you think about the Gouch?
Yeah, I doubted Gouch at first, but honestly, like you said, he's had a really good revival these past few weeks, being 4-2. He scored 135 points this week. Absolutely insane. I mean, his team is just, at the beginning of the year, I would have said there was some pretty bad picks, but Kyler Murray's been a great fantasy quarterback. Zeke's been solid. Sony Michel's been a stud. Tyreek Hill, now that he's back, gives him even more firepower. What's his name? DJ Moore. Yeah, DJ Moore's like a good wide receiver too, I think. Nothing too flashy. OJ Howard's, he's all right. I don't trust anyone that has Winston thrown to him. Devontae Freeman's been kind of hit or miss sometimes, but he's still been better than most running backs. And he has a good bench too. I mean, Phillip Rivers is his backup. Actually, his bench is kind of shit now that I look at it now. Yeah.
I love it.
I saw the first two, and then I looked, and I was like, no, okay, no.
Falls off, but he does, doesn't it?
Yes, but he does have a really, really good starting lineup. Like, I have to admit that I think it could be enough to overtake Clapfor if Clapfor ends up slipping, continuing into the season.
Yeah, I think Seagouch looks surprisingly good. Seagouch has always been a guy who takes high-risk, high-reward picks. Kyler Murray has looked pretty good in the Texas Tech style air raid offense. It's not like a true air raid, but it's definitely more of a spread than you would see on other teams. Michel, I think, has emerged as probably the most consistent Pats guy. It's still the Pats.
Probably the most consistent Pats running back in the last few years, if you think about it, because there's always been multiple timeshares, but Sony Michel seems to have this one kind of locked down.
Yes, and he doesn't get all the carries, but he seems to be getting, he got
the
20.
Ones that matter.
Yeah, and he got 22 looks last week. And the thing that I like about the Pats sort of run contrary to the Saints with Breeze in the sense that when the Pats get ahead, they're not afraid to grind it out and run it and win by 7-10, whereas Sean Payton is more of the Bob Stoops school of like, let's run it up. Like, let's just keep fucking passing. Have Drew Brees throw 50 times a game even when we're ahead.
Oh, you're talking to someone who's been a Texas Tech football fan for his entire life. I know how the whole air raid, pass it even when you're up by 30 instead of grinding the clock out. Like, it's infuriating.
Well, it's the reason why Drew Brees has more passing yards than Tom Brady consistently, despite being a worse quarterback by a little bit. Tyreek Hill coming back this week, caught 2 touchdowns in a Chiefs loss. That was huge for Seagouch. Nice stream, picking up the Skins against Miami in a Tank Bowl. Good job by Seagouch.
I loved watching that game, by the way.
Ugh, disgusting.
Watching Fitzpatrick almost win it. By the way, before we move on to the next matchup, did you see the last play of that game?
Yes, the screen pass, and he dropped it. That was peak Dolphins, dude. It just doesn't get any better.
instead of the Dolphins coaching staff like actually admitting something like a mistake, they doubled down and like actually like they're like, no, I think we made the right call.
The funny thing is, even if he caught it, he was going to get blown up behind the line anyway.
3-yard long. Yeah. That's the one play I would never call if I'm like on Madden and I have one play to score a 2-point conversion. I ain't calling a screen pass.
Oh, and it wasn't like one of those like old school screens that the Carolina Panthers used to do as Steve Smith, where he was like way out on the outside and it was like 1v1. He was going to make the guy miss. They brought the guy inside to the seam, everything was right on top of the line. Like they were basically trying to run a screen packs into the box. It was just awful.
Well, wake me up whenever they draft Tua, and then I'll start caring about that franchise again.
Well, I've got an interesting question for you. I'm glad you brought that up. Do you think Tua will be able to revive or lead that franchise to glory? Because personally, I think Tua is more of a system player.
No way. I don't think he's a system player. I think he's actually really good. Because I thought he was overrated his first couple of years at Alabama, but he's proven me wrong. I mean, he's been one of the most accurate passers with really, really good decision making. I mean, he shows maturity beyond his years. I think even for people that are in the NFL, that it looks like. Well, obviously, we'll have to wait and see if that's the case when he plays. But in college, he looks just above, like a league above everyone else. And going to your question, I don't think he can by himself. No, I think he can help majorly for that franchise. But the coaching staff is a sham. The rest of that roster is a complete sham. Just drafting one guy, no matter, even if it is at the quarterback position, is not going to make you a playoff team because they have nothing around him to support him once they draft him.
Well, they liquidated their assets. You know, if you're going to trade everyone with an ounce of talent away to lose on purpose, okay, you get Tua. You know, you lose more games than the Skins. He's inheriting a team that's going to need like multiple other first-round picks to survive. He doesn't have any weapons. Who is he going to throw to?
It's exactly like you said. I heard someone on a YouTube video earlier today say that the Dolphins are a liquidation sale under the name of a football team. Like that's exactly what their franchise is. They're just selling off everything that even has a bit of value. Because you can't name me 3 people on that team that's not Fitzpatrick or that's not a quarterback.
The truth about the Dolphins, I got one for you. Taco Charlton, Kipo.
Well, hey, you got a sack against Dak.
The Dolphins are a disgrace. They're a team that's losing on purpose blatantly to tank for Tua. I think if a team loses on purpose this brazenly, they should have their first overall pick liquidated. The NFL has to send a message. If you have the worst team, yeah, you deserve the last pick. We're not necessarily going to institute a lottery system like in the NBA, but
that's what I was going to ask. What if they did a lottery like for the first 3 picks?
I don't really think so because I think with 16 games, I don't think it would work out as well. I also don't really.
But this is the first time we've seen a team tank like this is like baseball tanking, and in baseball there's no repercussions for it because who cares? But in football, like you said, there's 16 games. So I just don't know if this continues to happen in the future with other franchises. I don't know if they're going to have to make some kind of rule change. That's my only question.
Here, I don't really like the idea of a lottery so much. I sort of feel like if you're legitimately the worst team, you deserve the first overall pick. But I think that it's sort of hard to do because it's more judgment based. But this isn't really very hard to figure out. The Dolphins are losing on purpose. They traded away everyone with value in the offseason. So I don't even think you would need to move to a lottery system. I think an extreme, heavy-handed punishment against the Dolphins, if they successfully go 0-16, would be justified. I mean, frankly, I could argue you don't even have to go 0-16 the way they traded away all of their assets for pennies on the dollar in the offseason. One of the most retarded things about the Dolphins is they tried to do the most pathetic cover-up ever to their the Josh Rosen trade. Oh, here's the second round for Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen's terrible. There's no better tank commander than Josh Rosen.
Yeah, I can't remember a number 1 pick or a first round pick in recent memory, in recent years, that has been as disappointing as he has been. And I feel bad for him. He's been dealt a bad hand. He's been on 2 crap franchises. He really has. The Cardinals and the Dolphins are bottom tier franchises.
He did have David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald. That's a lot better than a lot of rookies have weapon wise.
Yeah, but the offensive line was just patchwork, man.
True.
He got hit so bad. The defense was not good.
That's true.
I don't blame it all on Rosen, but I also don't think he's that good. But the final thing I'm going to say about the whole lottery thing is that I don't want a lottery system to even be implemented. But at the same time, I don't want teams in the NFL to be tanking. That's the initial problem.
True.
So, I mean, until that actually stops, or if that continues in the future, then I think there will have to be, maybe not a lottery, but some kind of, like you said, some penalty or, lose a couple spots in the draft, something like that.
What about a penalty, like a severe one? Like, you're going to lose your pick. If teams tank, the NFL sends a message, look, if you lose on purpose, we're taking your pick. It's better to try and go 4-12 than it is to trade everyone away with talent and go 0-16. Because if the Dolphins spent a whole year eating shit and got that pick taken away, can you imagine how angry their fan base would be? That would really send a message to teams looking to tank.
Oh, yeah, it really would. And I honestly don't know how they would react because they're already, these fans are already suffering enough, man. These Dolphin fans haven't had anything to cheer for since that Dan Marino perfect season. So, I don't really know, because I just feel bad for the fans because you're going to punish the organization and the franchise, and for good reason if they are tanking. But man, that just hurts. That just hurts the fan base even more because what's there to even support at that point? Not only did your team tank, but then you got punished for tanking, which would be kind of unheard of in today's NFL times. And tanking in general is kind of unheard of for modern NFL times, for any NFL time. No one's ever tanked, at least not on purpose.
True. I just feel like there needs to be a threat. There needs to be some sort of looming idea that if you guys put a shit product out week after week on purpose and lose, and that's your go-to strategy, then we're going to penalize the shit out of you and let that be a warning to other teams that try to execute this. But I think we have covered this topic sufficiently. And to finish my thoughts on this game, I think Weston drafting Scary Terry here is really saving his season. This Terry McLaurin guy, huge part of their offense, gets a lot of looks. Basically the only good thing about the Redskins offense, other than
he had a great game.
Yeah. Old man Adrian Peterson will pop off and get a touchdown every now and then, but that dude's a fossil.
Respect to him, though.
Yeah, he was good 10 years ago. Weston takes a win off of his buddy Sam. This is a pretty auto win. Sam, he'll put up 90 every now and then, but his team has looked pretty shit this year.
It's a weird thing about Adrian Peterson. I know this is random, but to think about how long we've been in this league together, my first year that I ever played with y'all, or I think it might have been yours too, I drafted Adrian Peterson, first-round pick, as a rookie. That was his rookie year. That's how long it's been that he's been in the league and that we've had this league. So there's a little side note.
Love that. Also, one thing to mention, Jared Goff, another week of failure, another week of him looking like it's his rookie year, and Doug Fisher is his coach.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, say what you want about the current coach, but, man, Goff underneath Jeff Fisher was just – that was rough.
Yeah, Fisher's a joke, and everyone knows it.
He's proven that he's only good at defense, and he's like the opposite of Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, he should be a coordinator. He should never get another coaching job again.
Yeah, I agree. Do what Wade Phillips has done.
Let's move on to Aaron and Lily, where Aaron essentially sucks out. Lamar Jackson plays the Bungles, and Lamar Jackson gets him 15 points on rushing yards alone. Dalvin Cook is decent. Everyone else sucks but the defense, who got to play the fucking Giants, where the Giants quarterback Daniel Jones really showed his young age and shit the bed badly. What do you think about this game?
Well, Aaron didn't have the greatest week, but he did what you have to do in fantasy, and he got the results. 89 points is pretty solid. Nothing outstanding. Lamar Jackson has really carried his team for a lot of the year. He did against me. But to be fair, Lily's team just has a lot of inconsistencies. Mayfield's a boom or bust, even though he has been a good fantasy option, but he's not very consistent, especially with all the turnovers. Mixon's been kind of a letdown. Jones has been actually fairly good for the Packers, to my disdain, because every time they get in the red zone, they hand it off to Jones instead of passing it. So That kind of triggers me. But he's been having a good season. Odell, I mean, obviously he's going to be overrated this entire year, but I still like Odell because he's probably the most talented wide receiver, if not top 5. So I still like Odell, and he had a solid game. I think he'll get more production the longer the season goes on. Cooks, nah. Like I said, Jared Goff, not good. The other Jared Cook, one of my favorite tight ends, actually had a really good game for the Saints. Sterling Shepard, no points. Just a good old goose egg.
He was hurt before the week and they didn't change him. He was on injured reserve or inactive or whatever.
Don't think it would have mattered anyway. Yeah, especially looking at her bench, there was nothing that she could have done, even if she did change. It's just a lackluster lineup, and to be fair, I think Aaron, at this point in the season, is by far the favorite. And I'm not just saying that because he is 6-0. I just think that he has so many players that even when they have an off game, they're still going to get him 8-9 points instead of 2-3. And that can be the difference in a lot of games. You know, even if your players don't have a huge boom week, if they're just consistent, and consistency, I think, wins games in fantasy. Aaron has a lot of consistency in his lineup.
I agree. One thing to note is Will Dissly, who has been a solid option for Aaron, a guy that gets a lot of red zone targets, had a severe injury, tore his Achilles, so Aaron is going to have to look for tight end help elsewhere. So I think that's worth noting.
And I know in this game that I say that he has much consistency, and he had a lot of players who had those 2-3 point games this week. But like I said, he has players that can just boom out and just completely take over an entire matchup. Lamar Jackson did it against me. Dalvin Cook also, in that same game against Aaron, did it against me. And then in this game, the Patriots defense got 25 points, as you mentioned, against that horrid Daniel Jones quarterbacking that game. So between his quarterback and his defense, he got 55 points. And that's the definition of a boom or bust week. Because he had a lot of busts, but man, the booms were good.
Well, Lamar Jackson and Dalvin Cook are both ranked number 2 at their respective positions, so it's very hard to lose whenever you have that going on. Think about that. That's like a 35-point floor. Then you had Tyler Lockett and Amari Cooper, 2 very consistent receivers. I mean, when I'm talking consistency, I mean Amari Cooper is ranked number 3 and Tyler Lockett is ranked number 11. I had both those guys really high on my pre-draft rankings going into the season. Both of them are consistent targets on their team as far as...
Cooper has shown that he was worth that first-round pick that they traded away.
Absolutely. Especially, I think an even better representation of how worth it Amari Cooper was whenever he went down in that game versus the Jets and the fucking Cowboys managed to choke it away. Let's just take a moment to talk about what a fucking disgrace that game against the Jets was. I mean, my God, you're facing the Jets, jokes. Sam Darnold's wearing more goddamn armor than the Mountain because he's coming off of mono, and if he gets hit in the tummy too hard, his spleen's gonna explode. Good thing you have Robert Quinn and a bunch of other overrated bums, DeMarcus Lawrence on that line. You have a soft-ass secondary that gives up big plays. Awuzie's been overrated. Soft-ass white Jeff Heath is slow as fuck compared to top-tier receivers. Then you look at the offense. Dak Prescott throwing above and behind people. Oh, goddamn day, I'm so tired of this guy with his inaccuracy. He can't throw the deep ball. Oh, he's a mid-range, he's a short-range, he's an Alex Smith type. Guess what? Alex Smith threw dimes. Alex Smith was fucking perfect mid-range. Dak Prescott's not even average mid-range. You look at the turnovers the Cowboys have had this year. You take out a couple fumbles from Zeke and Witten, and what are you looking at? You're looking at a bunch of shitty behind receiver throws from Dak Prescott, where he put his receivers in bad positions and positions for the ball to be tipped. Everybody knows this. If you're gonna fucking miss ahead. Don't fucking throw behind people. He's been so bad. And then Zeke, about half the game Zeke is in, it looks like he's quit. And to top it off...
Same. I was going to say, Zeke doesn't look the same.
He gets his money and he still looks like he did during that fucking Bronco game. Remember when they went up to Denver and Zeke quit like he had sickle cell? Fucking sitting on the bench pouting. It's sickening!
Yeah, and I'm not even a boys fan, but watching this game was like watching a car crash. Like, you couldn't like you knew what was going to happen, but you just couldn't tear your eyes away from it. And from a neutral standpoint for me, I couldn't get enough of it. If I was to put myself like in your shoes as a Cowboy fan, and like I'm a huge DFW sports fan, but the boys are the one team that I don't really like die hard root for. Oh, I mean, I don't hate them, don't dislike them, but I'm pretty neutral. But when I look at this team, I just look at how they built their roster around their big three of Dak, Zeke, and Amari, and then how they've built their defense around what's the very good defensive lineman that we got? Actually, we don't even have one. But the linebacker core is not bad. Like Sean Lee's a good backup. The guy from Notre Dame, what's his name?
Position?
Yeah, he's a linebacker for the Cowboys.
Van Der Esch?
He's good too from Boise State.
Smith. Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith. They have some good pieces, but just like I've always noticed, just like Texas Tech defenses have always like had this problem, no pass defense. No, absolutely no pass defense.
No pass rush either.
And yes, and since DeMarcus Ware, that's also been a problem. Like
True.
We haven't had a good edge rusher since DeMarcus Ware. And it's a shame that he went to Denver and proved how
he was still
much
good.
He still had left in the tank.
Yep.
Those were sacks and tackles that he could have provided for the Cowboys. But I don't even have a problem with the defense. Honestly, the defense has been above average in my opinion. They've stiffened up these past few years. But the offense, man, I just don't know what they're doing, and I don't think it's Kellen Moore's fault.
No.
But I ultimately think it comes down to the offensive line, who's supposed to be one of the best in the league. And I'm not saying they aren't, but when's the last time they all played healthy together?
Well, the first 2 weeks. Yeah.
Exactly. Week 1.
Yeah.
In the Jets, again in that Jets game, the Cowboys had 2 backup linemen in.
Right. Both the tackles were hurt. Lyle Collins, I think his name is, and then Smith, the talented left tackle.
Yes. And if you look at the Cowboys 2 years ago, Dak's rookie year and Zeke's rookie year, when they both broke out. Great offensive line. Dak's numbers, and I remember these in my head to this day, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Because that's a ridiculous line for a rookie quarterback. And then you look at Zeke's numbers. You go, wow, like that's insane. But then you look at the offense now and you go, maybe Dak was actually completing passes because they were putting 8 people in the box for Zeke.
Yep. Because
the offensive line was good, and Zeke was pounding out 5-8 yards. I mean, he looked like a man on fire running that first year compared to now. Like you said, he got his money. And now that it lies on Dak's shoulders more to carry more of the offensive load, we have seen these past few years what that looks like. And for most Cowboy fans, like you explained for your opinion, it's you do not like what you see. You want to change because there's no reason to waste his talent.
Well, you know what's sickening about the Cowboys' offense is everyone agrees how good the line is, and if you look at the ranks on Pro Football Focus or wherever the fuck, the line,
but they don't produce.
The line is undebatably extremely good. Like, no, even a Cowboy hater can acknowledge the line is very good. But when one guy gets hurt, it's like the collective talent of the line is cut in half. You got one fucking guy hurt and everything goes to shit.
Like the team chemistry immediately just goes back to zero if there's someone inserted into a new position on the line.
To me, that has something more to do with Dak. And it really pisses me off when you consider how easy it is to succeed as a Cowboys quarterback. You have Amari Cooper, a very good guy. You have Michael Gallup, a talented...
Witten has had like an amazing year as well.
Witten is a Hall of Famer. He's an aging guy at the end of his career, but he's a great blocker and he's consistent with good hands.
He doesn't even look like he's aged to me. He looks like he's even better than he was before he retired for the 1 year. So
this year he's looked better. The year right before he retired, he looked old and slow.
Yes, I agree. And maybe that year off is what has helped him recover some of his pep in his step. But he has been, a godsend to come back because.
And then
other than that fumble, and I know that fumble was bad, he's had a great year.
But Ben, you have the best back in the league and the best line in the league, and all you can do is be below average. If the Cowboys, and this isn't a joke or an exaggeration, if the Cowboys had Alex Smith, they would have 10 wins for sure. Just to have an average, consistent guy in there, with that line, those weapons, and that running back, that's like a 10-win team. So Dak is actually below average.
And I think Kellen Moore has done a good job with the offensive coordinating. I just think what he has played or what plays he has called and what strategies he has implemented, Dak can't actually execute. I don't think that's on the offense. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe he's asking too much of Dak. But there's no reason why you have one of the probably in my opinion, the best running back in the league with Zeke, and you can't even average more than 3-4 yards a carry. I mean, go back to the formula you had the first year with them: run first, second down, then have
play
that
action.
third and short. Like
it's the run and the play action.
That with Dak every time.
Well, I was big on Kellen Moore until that 4th and 2 play against the Jets whenever he ran a fucking speed option on the weak side. That was just a fraud call. And what do you know?
That was a very Boise State-esque call.
What did they do? They lost by 2 in a game where that fucking chip shot's getting hit every time. So that's the Cowboys in a nutshell. They have a bend-don't-break defense and a bad quarterback.
Hey, 3-3 though, as bad as it's been, it's not over. They still have a chance to turn it around.
Spoken like someone who doesn't really care about the Cowboys, because everyone in Cowboys Nation right now, the panic button has been hit. And
I know. That's why I'm not a Cowboys fan, because I love seeing the hysteria around Texas whenever the boys lose or they want Garrett fired, or the entire time they hated on Romo, like when Romo was one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time, who had no defense to help him at all during his entire career until like Dak came.
Well, here's what I think, Ben. Dak and Jason Garrett are going to get to play every last game this season. And whenever they inevitably lose 9 or 10 games, that's when Jerry's going to make his move. Jerry is not going to make a move early. He is going.
I'm for that. I don't like making moves early in a season. Like, what does that do?
Well, I mean, to fire Jason Garrett wouldn't be early. He's been the coach for like a decade.
I'm talking about early in a season, though. If you're going to fire someone, do it in the offseason. Like, I don't believe once the season starts, I don't think there's any benefit of firing your coach.
I agree in general, but for this specific situation, the amount of choking that's taking place, and keeping in mind Jason Garrett is nothing more than a puppet who doesn't contribute anything anyway, I'm all for getting the fuck rid of him. The guy's a joke. He's a terrible
And I thought
coach.
that for years. I thought Garrett was maybe not, or a puppet's a good word too, but I just thought he was just incompetent. I just don't know why Jerry keeps him around. He must make some good barbecue or something. It just blows my mind. And they've made some really good like franchise decisions once Stephen Jones has made the GM role his and not his dad's. But still, there's only so much you can do if your quarterback can't throw 5-10 yards down the field accurately.
Yeah, I suppose so. Alright, so let's talk about my game versus you, Benny boy, where you put up a respectable 98, but I was able to vanquish you, putting up the second most points in the league this week to the Gouch. So what were your thoughts on this game? Did you think you had the edge going into it? What do you think about playing me in general? Let's hear your thoughts.
I mean, when I looked at this matchup all week, I mean, I looked at it every day before the Thursday game started, and then Friday, Saturday, I looked at your roster. I just knew that it's kind of like Aaron's team, and that's why I think you and Aaron are all, I mean, the record speaks for itself. Y'all are the best teams in the league, but y'all really do have some of the best rosters, because same with Aaron, you might have players who may not have their best game, but they still score like 7 or 8 or 9. And honestly, that adds up. Brady, obviously, I want to go through this position by position, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Because Brady versus Rodgers, Rodgers actually put up his most of the year with 18 points, believe it or not. Can you believe that I drafted this guy in the second round? Because I can.
He's ranked 12. You said he was worse than Baker. He's ranked way higher than Baker, but he's still been a disappointment.
All right, he's been averaging 15 points a game, so it's not terrible, but he's not the Aaron Rodgers of old. But Brady still is Brady, and even if he has deteriorated a bit, he still puts up points. Great quarterback. Le'Veon Bell versus was it Damian Williams?
Yeah.
And that was one of the other reasons why I was watching that Jets game, was I wanted to see how Le'Veon did against that defense. But Le'Veon actually got a touchdown, 11 points. Damian Williams got 80 yards, I believe.
No.
Yeah.
He just had a touchdown. Yeah,
That's
basically
right.
no yards.
That pissed me off because he had like no yards. Yeah, 9 attempts for 7 yards and 1 touchdown. Yep, that's what pissed me off. But he's a good option even with Shady McCoy back. He's getting a lot of the snaps. So, and that offense has enough firepower and points to go around to everyone, especially when Mahomes is healthy, as he is not right now. Next position, Chris Carson against Lindsey. I really like Phillip Lindsay. Like Phillip Lindsay is one of my favorite running backs in the league, and I'm glad that I got him. And he's been really consistent for me. But man, Chris Carson has just been out of this world. I mean, he's ranked 9th. It's just consistency. I mean, he's gotten at least 15 rush attempts every game. He averages around 4.5 yards a carry. I mean, we know how much the Seahawks pound the ground. I mean, they run the ball more than anyone else in the and it works for them, especially with Russell Wilson. So Carson, great pick by you, I have to admit, because he's one of those guys that flies underneath the radar, but he's had a superb year. And then if we go to the wide receiver 1 position, I had Edelman, you had Julio Jones. It's pretty much equal. Edelman had 11. Jones, if you round up, had 11. Both, as we know, good wide receivers. I am kind of worried about Julio Jones's output, especially with Calvin Ridley and as we'll talk about in a second, Austin Hooper has taken a lot of the receptions away from potential targets on the Falcons offense.
Hooper's been great.
Exactly, yeah, and he really has. If I'm not
number 1 ranked tight end.
Yeah, correct. And I have him and Olsen, so I think I did all right on the tight ends. Yeah, I mean, having Olsen as your backup, that's a pretty good depth for that position. But yeah, Julio Jones is still a stud. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Even if he doesn't have the kind of season that he's had, he's still putting up like 80 yards, maybe a touchdown. I mean, he's still putting up consistent numbers for you. And Edelman has had some injuries this year, and Brady. You've probably noticed this. I know we've talked about this. The Patriots have ran the ball a ton in the end zone or the red zone, and they run the ball a lot. So he hasn't had the amount of receptions that you would think he would usually have, especially with Gronk missing on the team, because that just takes so much attention off of Edelman.
Gronk was doubled almost every game.
Correct, and like that, and for a slot receiver like Edelman, who's that talented and that fast, I mean, that's just. It's not. I mean, that's why he was a premier fantasy option, and I still think he's a good fantasy option, but not like in the past. Wide receiver 2, good choice of having Michael Thomas, even if Bridgewater is a quarterback, because Bridgewater has been pretty productive, and Michael Thomas is ranked 4th out of wide receivers, which doesn't surprise me in the least. He's one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he shows that with Breeze or Bridgewater.
Bridgewater looks to him a lot too.
Exactly, and and sometimes that's how it goes with injuries, because you get a backup quarterback in and they don't throw to your wide receiver one bit because they're used to their practice squad guys. But in this case, man, Michael Thomas looks like he hasn't even missed a heartbeat with Bridgewater back there. So your wide receiver 1-2 combo there is pretty formidable, and I was looking at that all week, just hoping that they wouldn't bust out, and they didn't. I mean, they were kind of contained they had good, and I keep saying it, consistency, man. Consistent points. Even though they didn't have the greatest weeks of their lives, they got you a good amount. Then we go to tight end. One of my favorites, George Kittle. I actually really like him. Great tight end. He's ranked 7th overall, but he got 10 points somehow in that game against the Chargers. No, was it the Rams? No, the Rams. Okay. But great tight end, consistently puts you up points. Austin Hooper, as we mentioned a couple minutes before, number 1 ranked tight end. Matt Ryan has looked for him more than any receiver that he's had. And then we go to our flex position. I had Peyton Barber, who we talked about earlier, shares as Spencer has the other running back in the timeshare, Ronald Jones. And Peyton Barber's a rookie, so I wasn't really expecting much. But I had Marlon Mack, one of my most consistent players, on bye. So I didn't know, really, and you look at my bench, there was really no other options. I mean, there was the only people that scored points on my bench was Olsen. So, he got 28 yards of scrimmage yards. You, on the other hand, your flex, Tevin Coleman,
back from injury,
had a really good game.
He's getting a lot of looks too.
His past 2 games, he's just been really good. 16 attempts 2 weeks ago, 97 yards, a touchdown. This past week, 18 attempts, 45 yards, a touchdown, and he had 16 yards receiving too. I mean, he was really good behind Devontae Freeman for the Falcons, and I'm really happy to see him getting some his own spotlight to shine, because I like Jimmy G, and I like that offensive line, and I like the 49ers right now. I think they have a solid team. And Tevin Coleman is a really, really good player. Great to have him come back, and he's perfect for that flex spot. So, and I mean, as we know, you really don't have any holes in this roster, if I look at it. I mean, the kicker, and we'll keep going. Kickers were normal. Your defense, Broncos defense, got 23. 49ers, for me, got 10. But even on your bench, I mean, you just have players that can make a difference for you. And you could have even scored more against me if you put in Jamal Williams.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's a tough call. I mean, I obviously understand not putting him in, but that's just saying that you have some pretty good depth here. And I thought I might have had a chance, but, man, you just pulled away too much. And I'll beat a dead horse until it's even more dead, but you have just been consistent, and to me, that really is what has been winning you games.
Well, I had my Bills defense on by a defensive unit that has been performing decently for me, but they have a very weak schedule coming up, going up against Miami, Washington, Miami again.
The Broncos defense, by the way, was a great play.
Ranked bottom 5, huge dark horse.
And that's the thing, is I wouldn't even looked at that. I would, if I was, maybe you did this, but did you see that they were playing Tennessee?
Yeah, it was a matchup play. But
exactly. And that was why it was such a genius play, because 23 points, I mean, along with all the other consistent outputs you got from your players, I mean, that could have really impacted the outcome of this game. I mean, let's say you get 5 points there instead of 23. I mean, then it's a 5-point game. So
yeah, it's real close.
Really, really good managerial decision for that. Great matchup. So I noticed that, and I was hoping that maybe Mariota could make some kind of miracle, but no, you were right.
Well, every year with the Titans, it's the same shit. I can't imagine being a Titans fan, because every year it's the same joke. It's, we're a little bit above average. We're going to ground and pound, and then they're garbage every year. The Titans are just such a disappointment.
And if they ever had a consistent offense, it'd be a decent team, but that offense is just putrid, absolutely putrid.
Alrighty, let's move on to previewing this week's matchups. We can start with my matchup versus Aaron, which he unfortunately already has a dozen points because the Chiefs kicker managed to get him a dirty dozen.
And we're going to go ahead and call this, obviously, the game of the week.
Yeah.
6-0 Aaron against 5-1 Wiley. Good matchup.
Both division leaders.
What do you think? He said he already has 12. You're right, both division leaders. He already has 12 from the kicker, Harrison Butker. So how do you think the rest of this matchup is going to pan out? What's your thought?
I expect both the quarterbacks to get over 20, honestly. Hopefully Lamar Jackson playing in Seattle gets roughed up a little bit, although I think he'll get enough rush yards where it won't matter.
And he's in Seattle too, so that could be a factor.
I don't know how much of a competitive advantage Seattle has at home anymore compared to the days of the Legion of Boom. I feel like that's fallen off a little bit.
No, it definitely has, but it still is the loudest NFL stadium in the league. So
true. Chris Carson has stopped his fumbleitis early in the year. It looked like he might get yanked for Rashad Penny because he kept putting the ball on the ground. He's knocked that shit off. Todd Gurley's been pretty disappointing. His injuries have been flaring up again. And between his knee and his quadriceps, even though he's looking good going into this game, I just don't know how much you can trust this guy. He's been
underwhelming. for what people have expected out of him. But he's still ranked 19th. Like, he's still in the top 20 for running backs, and that's even with his injuries. So, I mean, I like you said, I don't know if I can trust him, and I don't think I really could. But I mean, he's a decent option. I mean, once you draft him that high, and you have to stick with them. So, I don't know. I think Gurley this week against Atlanta will have a fairly good week.
To me, it's not Gurley's points you worry about so much as him going out mid-game or getting re-injured. You know,
well, it's not him getting injured too. It's I feel like half the time they just take him out. They use C.J. Anderson
or
who's also
Brown too.
Yes, I mean it makes matters worse for him. It's become a timeshare whenever he was supposed to be the golden boy.
Yeah, well, back in the day, he was just getting so many carries when they got ahead, it was fucking ridiculous.
Very true.
So anyway, Devin Singletary, the young plucky back for the Bills, is facing off against awful Miami. And I think he's due for a good week. He's coming off of injury. It's not a rush because they're coming off of bye. Although you have to edge Dalvin Cook here against a weak Detroit defense.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
And Julio Jones is playing a reeling LA Rams team. I think he will get a touchdown this week. Although I do like Tyler Lockett, I expect he'll get about 11. What do you think about that?
Yeah, who's Seattle playing again this week?
Baltimore.
Baltimore? Yeah, I can see that. I think he'll probably get like 10, 11. If not that, maybe like probably 7, 8. He always gets yards if not touchdowns, so. And Russell Wilson does seem to really like him.
Yeah, he's definitely Wilson's favorite target, especially since Disley went down. And when you look at wide receiver number 2 here, you look at two big, talented guys who are in really shitty positions this week. Amari Cooper coming off of a quad injury, playing on a Dallas team that's just choking every chance they get. And then Michael Thomas is playing the best defense in the league.
Yeah, and I don't even think Bridgewater will, with all his magic that he's made this year, I don't think he'll be able to overcome that defense, especially in Soldier Field. And I know that home advantage isn't as big of a deal as it is in some sports and when it comes to football, but man, Soldier Field off of Lake Michigan when it's that cold, I mean that's a different kind of atmosphere for some people that are living down in New Orleans, Louisiana. Like that's going to be a different kind of climate and temperature for sure. So I just don't know how much I trust anyone against this Bears defense, let alone at Soldier Field. So,
well, hopefully,
nothing against Michael Thomas, but I just don't trust anyone against that defense.
Well, ideally it'll be like at least 5 points. Like he's probably not going to score a touchdown, but maybe he'll get 60 yards. You know, like
exactly. And Michael Thomas is not that kind of player that's not going to put up anything. Like he's not going to put up a goose egg. Michael Thomas is going to make sure that he's involved in that game plan somehow or another. Or Sean Payton will make sure of it. Because you know how they love their gadget plays.
Sean Payton, best offensive coach in the league, by the way, not Sean McVay. What do you think?
Did I say Sean McVay?
No, you didn't misspeak. That was an opinion. Who's a better offensive coach?
Yes, I agree. I think over the course of, ever since I've been watching football, the Saints offense has always been just premier. And that has to do with Breeze too, but those two combined, have been the best combination of head coach quarterback I think in the league. Maybe other than Belichick, Brady, I'll say that because the rings speak for themselves. But other than that, I think Breeze, Peyton, best 1-2 combo when it comes to coach quarterback.
All right, good point. I think George Kittle is going to outperform the Houston tight end here. I mean, he's playing Washington, looking
Agreed.
for a good week. Same thing with Coleman, playing soft-ass Washington. Expect both these guys to have a good game. Although I think this is the year the Chargers pull, or the week the Chargers pull their head out of their ass and do well, as they're playing a reeling Tennessee squad.
And that being said, I still don't think Tennessee's defense is bad, though. And Eckler is in a timeshare now that Melvin is back, even though that I like Eckler more. But that's still taking away some of his points. So, I mean, I'm going to give the edge to Coleman on this one.
Okay, interesting. I was actually considering picking up another kicker. I think Harrison Butker will outperform Will Lutz. The only reason I didn't is because I think the Saints will make it into the red zone a couple times, and they'll
That's
stall
exactly what I was
out,
going to say.
and he'll kick a couple field goals, you know?
That defense stiffens like a goddamn like morning wood. Like whenever they get sent to the red zone, man. Like that defense is just clamps down. So I mean, I think that's a good decision to keep Lutz in. Plus, he's been pretty consistent.
True that. And then Pats versus Bills. Both teams are playing absolutely horrific offenses. Even though the Pats have a better defense, I'm going to actually edge Bills here because it's fucking Miami and they're losing on purpose.
And maybe it was just the Cowboys, and I never mentioned this when we talked about the Cowboys-Jets game, but Sam Darnold was insanely good. I mean, they had Luke Falk starting. The past 3 weeks, they had Luke Falk. And I saw this is a stat. Luke Falk is the first quarterback in NFL history to start an NFL game and then be cut the next day. I shit you not. He's the first quarterback to start a game and be cut the next day. And Sam Darnold is, I think, a lot better than people give him credit for. I just don't think he's shown, or I don't think he's had the time to show it yet. But yeah, I'm still going to go with you. They're playing Miami. The Bills are, so I'm going to edge that to Miami, or the Buffalo.
In this battle of Titans, I'm going to edge myself here. What say you?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that you probably win by 5 to 10 points.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be, yeah. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout on either side, but y'all both have players that put up good numbers every week. No one that puts up goose eggs, so I expect it to be a high scoring, like in the low hundreds, and very close.
Alrighty. So let's move on to C. Goucher facing off against the new guys. Sam is looking to steal a win here versus a superior team. And I think we can go through this one a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's going to light it up. He's playing one of the worst defenses in the league. I think Arizona will win this week. And I think Kyler Murray is going to break 22, actually. What do you think?
I can see it, yeah. Against that Giants defense. And, I mean, as much hype as there was around Murray, he's really lived up to it. He's been, he's obviously made some rookie mistakes, but from fantasy aspect, he's been wonderful. So I can see him breaking over 2022. I have a lot more trust in him than Goff.
Agreed. Goff could...
Which is a weird thing to say. I never thought I would say I had more trust in a rookie quarterback than someone who went to the Super Bowl last year, but that's how it is currently.
It's funny because Goff, if he keeps playing like this, him and McVay could suffer one of the biggest fall-offs after 1 year in recent memory. I mean, when you think about the amount of gargling that the media was doing for these guys, I mean, they were just lining up to suck McVay off deep, and now they're putting up 7 fucking points, looking like frauds. Goff has reverted to his rookie state. This is a huge game for them, playing an Atlanta team that can't get out of their own way and misses game-tying field goals as time expires.
And Atlanta's one of those teams that they have a losing record, but man, they're so much better than the record actually says because they've lost so many close games, and that comes down to their own. I mean, it's their own fault, but they're a lot better than the record speaks for.
Yep. So Montgomery versus Sony Michel. Obviously, Michel gets the edge.
Well, what about? Are you giving it to David Johnson or Zeke on the running back one?
The way the Cowboys look, I'm gonna edge David.
I'm going to go with Zeke on this one.
Okay, do you think he's going to punch it in?
I have this theory that players put in more effort on primetime games considering that they're the showcase, and Cowboys are playing Sunday night against the Eagles. Huge divisional game. I can see Zeke maybe ramping up that intensity that he's lacked these past few weeks. So I'm gonna edge Zeke. I just don't really trust David Johnson right now.
Alrighty.
Even though he's ranked 7th, and maybe that's just stupid of me, but I don't know. I just don't trust them this week against the Giants defense because I think they're going to throw the ball a lot.
Stephon Diggs obliterated last week. Do you think he'll be able to beat 13.4?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think he'll have a down week.
Kirk Cousins has been good, and he possibly could give Diggs a lot of points this week, but I don't think so.
Last week was a very interesting test, and what happens when the opposing team's linebacker who used to be your teammate talks shit about you and calls you the weakest part of your team, and the coach just lets you air it out instead of throwing 11 times all game like they had been doing in the past.
You know that player got cut, right? The
Yeah.
next game.
Yeah. Like, we lost. Shut up, bitch. You're never talking on a freaking Eagle uniform again.
The irony of it all.
Yep. Last time we saw a Philadelphia Eagle say something that inflammatory was my boy R. Cooper.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to his career.
Yeah. Poor bastard. At least
ESL is calling.
At least that linebacker deserved to be cut.
The Toronto Argonauts are calling for him.
Yeah, imagine Manziel to R. Coop. How great of a duo that would have been.
Oh wow!
And talk about two dudes that could shotgun some beers after the game too.
You're talking about a wet dream of a fantasy. I mean, that is just great. I would pay money for that, even if it was like an XFL league. Like, dude, I would pay Manziel to R. Coop.
Dallas is going to have an XFL team. They're going to play at the Rangers' old stadium, Globe Life Park. Give me Baker and R. Coop as the 1-2 punch.
Chesney can perform for them at halftime.
I'll buy season tickets for $100, and I'll go to the games in blackface. Okay, it'll be great.
You will not be allowed in at the entrance.
Yeah. I'll be wearing a Cooper's Eagle jersey. I'll have a sign that says like Cooper's Wiggers or something. No, I'm a Dallas fan. Let me in. I know I'm wearing an Eagles jersey. It's a Cooper though. It's like, are you sure it's not a David Akers? The only two Eagles jerseys I'd own were a Cooper and a David Akers. But
I do. David Akers, one of the best. Got to give him respect.
My favorite kicker ever. Not just my favorite Eagle.
Mine's Sebastian Janikowski.
Yeah, he's ancient.
And he's retired.
True that. All right, Hunter Henry. Oh, we skipped Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup is going to beat the fuck out of, what is this, Marquise Brown? Yeah, give me a break. Gallup has looked fucking good whenever Dak will actually throw it to him.
Yeah, and Cincinnati actually has, like, as bad as Cincinnati has been, they have one of the top pass defenses. They just can't stop the run, so I'm with you on that. I don't think Brown's going to do that much. And plus, like I said, Sunday night matchup, prime time, players sometimes perform better than those spotlights, so maybe Gallup will put up some big points.
Must-win game for the Cowboys against the Eagles. Do you agree?
Agreed. I mean, to go to 3-0 to 3-4. I mean,
fraud central.
Even a bystander like me from the Cowboys looking afar would hit the panic button, and if not already. But I mean, if they lose this next one, then the internet boards are going to be full of angry Cowboy fans.
Part of me wonders, because the Cowboys had such a soft schedule early and it gets a little harder as they go through the year, part of me wonders, even if they lose every single game from here on out, if they go 3-13, even though I said earlier that Jerry's going to give Dak and Jason Garrett the rest of the year to figure shit out, or at least I don't even think Jerry thinks like, oh, they'll figure it out. Jerry thinks like, I don't want people saying I pulled the plug too early, like I'm going to give them a full year. If they go 3-13, will they make it till the end of the year? I think Dak will, but after like week 15, if it's like the 11th loss in a row, is Garrett just going to be fucking fired?
If that were to happen, then yes. I don't see him keeping his job, because there would just be way too much public outcry, and even for the Jones to ignore, like they would not be able to do that this time if Garrett were to lose that many games. And Dak, I don't know if he would keep playing. If the Cowboys are out of playoff contention, ironically enough, I can see them trying to tank. I mean, might as well. I mean, if you're already not going to be in a playoff position, try to get the best draft pick you can.
Well,
I don't know how they're going to do with that. I don't know if they're going to keep Dak in. I don't know what they're going to. I don't even know who the backup is.
Yeah, that's why I think that Dak won't be benched. It's not like they have a plucky young guy ready to go on the bench.
Who is the backup?
I don't even know, frankly.
All right, well, continue on to the next matchup, and I'll look.
All right.
Or the next,
Yeah, so Frank Gore playing Miami and then DeVoe playing LA. I think both will get 10. DeVoe looked great last week. He's not having to split time. He's getting around 10 for the last 4 weeks. Solid option.
Falcons' offensive pieces always put up good numbers. It's just that defense that can't do crap.
I think both Gore and Singletary will do this. Miami, sir. Who is it?
Cooper Rush.
Never heard of him. Have you?
Well, his first name's Cooper, so I already like him.
Yeah, so the Cowboys aren't going to their backup, but I mean, if you look at the Cowboys' schedule, Giants, Vikings, Lions, Pats, Bills, Bears, Rams, Eagles, Skins. They've got to beat the Giants and Skins, right? There's no way they lose those games. I can see them losing to the Vikings, the Pats, the Bears, the Rams, but Jesus, like...
I can see them losing to the Giants in New York. Just like they did last week.
The Skins at home is their final game. So let's just say that Garrett loses all the rest.
They're going to beat the Skins.
But if Garrett loses Giants, Vikings, Lions, Pats, Bills, Bears, Rams, Eagles, all of those except for maybe the Giants, I would say the other team is looking very good right now. If he loses all those, does he even make it to the final game versus the Skins?
No. That's why I actually think they'll give this Cooper Rush guy a chance at that point, because there's nothing to lose. You might as well see what he can do.
Man,
the whole reason Dak got in the spotlight was because Romo was hurt in the preseason, and then Dak was good in the preseason.
True.
And Dak got that spotlight. So there's a lot of parity when it comes to especially quarterbacks in the league, and you never know. Cooper Rush could come in there. By the way, he played at Central Michigan University as a rookie. And, I mean, there's been quarterbacks that have played in FCS small schools that have done a really good job. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even, advocating for that. But I'm just saying, why not? If it gets that bad in the season, why not even just try him? Just to see what he can do. I mean, it can't be any worse than what Dak has done.
By the way, I am just insanely thankful that when you look back at Cowboys history, even though they had those few good years with Dak, that Dak didn't get that $40 million a year contract. And after he beat those 3 dumpster teams and all the idiot mainstream media talking heads, oh, you got to pay him. Just back up the Brinks truck, pay him whatever he wants. He beat the Dolphins. No, it is so good that Jerry wasn't a retard and gave him a massive extension after those 3 games, because as it stands, I think a lot of Cowboys fans are looking forward to the end of this year. Yeah, maybe the Cowboys go 5-11 and Dak is let go because his contract's over, and Jason Garrett is let go, and then you can start over with Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, the best line in the league, Zeke, and some decent pieces on defense. I think it would be the shittiest thing in the world for the Cowboys to go 9-7, play the Rams in the wild card game, beat them, and then Jason Garrett get an extension he doesn't deserve.
I mean, one thing that we're overlooking is that they made the playoffs last year, and everyone wants to point to the fact that, it's because Jason Garrett has really upped his coaching. Our defense, our coordinator's done a lot better. But they haven't. I mean, people just keep saying there's all this progress, and I just don't see it. I see regression when it comes to the Cowboys,
or stagnation at the very least. It's like the same team.
But the one thing that we have not mentioned is that how subpar that division is, because regardless of what are 3-3 in these last 3 games have been for the Cowboys, they're still right in the thick of it. I mean, they are at the top of the division, right next to the Eagles. I mean, the Redskins and Giants, I don't think that's going to pose much of a threat. I think the Eagles are the biggest threat. So if you can win one against Philadelphia, and if you can maybe sweep everything of Washington and the Giants, I mean, that's 5 wins right there. Or even if you get swept by the Eagles, win those other 4 games. That's 4 wins right there. So, as bad as the Cowboys have been these past few weeks, they still have a lot of time to turn it around. And maybe we're just overreacting, and maybe at the end of the year when they're 13-3, we'll look back at this and laugh. But I doubt that, honestly.
Yeah, and then to wrap up the thoughts on the matchup, Myers versus Baltimore versus Elliott. I think you got to edge Elliott. And the Jets get to play the Bungles, although the Chargers get to play Tennessee. Expect both defenses to pop off for 8 or better.
Agreed.
So who are you giving the edge to? I'm going the Gouch.
I'm going to go with Sam on this one.
Okay, interesting.
I think Frank Gore actually has a breakout week for some reason. The relic that he is. And I also think that David Montgomery is going to have a really good game against. So, but it's going to be close. I mean, 2 evenly matched teams. I think the new guys, they're kind of like how the Falcons are. Their record doesn't really reflect the team, because I think he has a pretty solid team. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to give it to Sam.
Alrighty. Let's move on to trophies versus One Johnny Football, please. Jackson is starting Minshew and Fournette against Cincy. Expect both of them to have big days. Kenyon Drizzy Droop starting for West End. He won't break 6. Although I think Wincy will do well against Dallas. I've got to edge Jacksonville here. They've got to just... This is a must-win game for Jacksonville after trading away Mouthy, Jalen Ramsey. And I think it couldn't be any easier for Minshew and Fournette to have good weeks this week.
That's true. It's just hard for me to trust a 1-2 combination on your fantasy lineup of the quarterback and running back of the Jags, no matter what the actual matchup is. That's just my old ways of it, but I just can't support. I don't know. I would have no faith in that combination on a week-to-week basis, even against crap teams. So it's worked so far for Jackson, but he's 2-4. So has it really worked?
Well, I didn't say that it worked. I said they're playing Cincy, which is why I think.
No. I was just bringing that up. I was just as a rhetorical question because I don't know if it has helped.
Well, I think when they play Cincy, it's like when someone plays Miami. Like, you stack the shit out of that team.
And I agree. I mean, they have no excuse not to score a bunch of points this week. But I feel like the Jaguars' offense have really disappointed in the past. Not with Minshew and Fournette, but just in general. It's that entire franchise, the offense just disappoints year after year. So even David Garrard, their best quarterback in their franchise, was subpar.
True that. So Adam Thielen is facing off against Calvin Ridley. I think you got to edge Thielen there. And as far as the running backs go, Chimera is not going to play, and Jackson's going to have to replace him with this guy Chase Edmonds, who's David Johnson's backup.
He actually had a really good game last week.
Yeah, Johnson's been a little banged up. I expect Edmonds to be decent, but Josh Jacobs to be better, frankly.
I mean, Edmonds has 14 and 12 the past 2 weeks, which isn't bad for being a backup to David Johnson. But I'm still going to give the edge to Jacobs.
Okay. And then as far as Thielen and Ridley, you're going Thielen, right?
Thielen, yep.
Then Galladay, who's playing Minnesota versus this DJ Chark guy. Chark's actually really highly ranked. He's really highly ranked receiver-wise, and if there was ever a week to pick him, it would be this week. What do you think?
DJ Chark has been probably one of the most standout performers of the year as a rookie, too. I mean, he's ranked number 2 for wide receivers. And on a Jags team. I mean, that is saying something, and that is a credit to Minshew as well. But in this matchup, because Minshew is on Jackson's team and Chark is on Weston's team, it could be one of those possible occurrences where it can hurt Jackson if Minshew has a big day. Because if Minshew has a big day and he throws a lot of those targets to DJ Chark, then we all know that points for wide receivers are easier to get than quarterback points, especially with touchdowns and stuff. So it could backfire on Jackson. Not that it's his choice, but that is something to look out for.
Yeah,
but
you're right. He could be a little bit blocked there.
But I really like Kenny Galladay too, because Matthew Stafford I think has been one of the most underrated quarterbacks throughout his career. Even though he hasn't produced any playoff success, he's been a really, really solid quarterback ever since he came out of Georgia. So, and Galladay has been the best wide receiver, probably the best wide receiver they've ever had since Calvin Johnson or before Calvin Johnson. Man, probably number 2.
Imagine playing in such a shithole city where you retire in your prime.
I was thinking about that the other day. How bad is Detroit, where Calvin Johnson just said, I'm good.
Yeah. What was he, 31 or some bullshit?
Oh, no. Yeah. He was 30, 31. He still had plenty of time to play.
I think you got to edge Mark Andrews here, who's been top 5 all year. Tight end.
Agreed.
All right, and then Robert Woods versus Breida. Breida's splitting time with Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman got more touches last week. But when I look at Robert Woods playing Atlanta, this is sort of put up or shut up week for the Rams. I expect both of these guys to get about 8.
I'll edge Breida slightly, but I agree. I think they're probably equal.
Okay. And then when I look at Gonzalez versus Tucker, I've got to edge Gonzalez here. I think they're going to put up a lot of points against the G-men.
I think he's only missed 1 field goal all year, and he's kicked a lot of them. Zane Gonzalez has been probably the most consistent kicker this year in football. So, yeah, I'm going to give the edge to Gonzalez. And that's over Justin Tucker, who has been one of the most consistent kickers of all time. I mean,
yep.
I just don't know against that Seattle defense if they're going to get into the other if they're going to get into Seattle's territory as much as they want to, because I don't know if he's going to have many field goal opportunities, especially not as many as Zane Gonzalez might have.
I don't really give a fuck about these defenses, do you?
No.
Okay. Edge Weston, what say you?
I'm giving the edge to Jackson in this one.
Okay. I think if Chimera was healthy, I'd give Jackson the edge.
And I can see why you say that. I just think that Jackson has a few players that probably could break out, and I have some question marks on Weston's team, like Everett. I don't trust Woods. I don't really particularly trust Drake. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Weston has to bank on a good game to Shark. That's going to be my opinion on this. And no offense to Weston, obviously he's one of the best managers in the league, but I think Jackson might edge this one out.
All right, let's move on to Cam Joke versus Spencer. This is pretty much a win-or-go-home game for both of these guys, I feel like. Cameron, as usual, starts hot, and when the bye weeks hit, starts to eat shit. He's on a 4-game losing streak, as is Spencer. Both of these teams badly need to stop the bleeding. Somehow Cam's defense has put up 24 points, and he's still predicted to lose. So why don't you take the lead on this one? Maybe let's try to speed it up a little bit on a matchup like this.
Okay. Yeah, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, giving the edge to Deshaun Watson on that one. Melvin Gordon against LaShawn McCoy, who's already played last night, got 7.6 points. Not bad for Shady, but not amazing, just average. I'm still going to give the edge to Gordon on this one. Even though I don't think Tennessee's defense is bad, I think he will get into the end zone at least once and probably get 50, 60 yards.
It's going to be Burkhead versus Barkley.
Burkhead, like we mentioned earlier, Sony Michel has that running back spot kind of locked down, and it's rare for a Patriot team to have a primary back. But Rex Burkhead has gotten some touches, but I still think Barkley is going to outperform him there. Even if McCaffrey was in, Barkley might still outperform, because I think Barkley is going to have a breakout game against Arizona.
Yeah, Barkley was great, and McCaffrey being out for Cam here is just a death nail in his team, because frankly he's been carrying Cam's team.
Oh yes, I mean by far the best player in all fantasy this year. Insane. Wide receivers: Golden Tate and Tyler Boyd. I look at this and it's kind of equal to me. Both are average wide receivers. I can see them both getting like 6 or 7, maybe 8. Wide receiver 2, Mohamed Sanu, Cooper Kupp. Love Kupp. Don't like how their offense is performing right now. And I like how Matt Ryan has thrown the ball around, especially to my tight end. But I think Sanu, even though statistically it doesn't look like he would, I think Sanu is going to have a better game than Kupp. And they play each other, just to mention. Atlanta and LA talked. So both wide receivers facing each other. Tight ends, we go to Witten for Cam, Zach Ertz for Spencer. And Witten has been consistent. Like we talked about him getting, looking better than he even did 2 years ago. But he's not like a stat packer. I mean, he's just a consistent tight end who, like you said earlier, is a really good blocker. Just a good player, but not
a big fantasy guy, right?
Exactly.
Not really explosive.
And Ertz has been one of the most consistent tight ends these past few years. And it's a primetime game against Dallas, against that secondary. Those linebackers can't guard tight end. So I can see him having a good game. The flex spots, we have Preston Williams, who's ranked 61. So I think that speaks for itself. But then we got Josh Brown for Spencer, who is 36 overall, averaging 9 points a week. Going to give the edge to Brown here just because he's been way more consistent.
Miami.
And enough said. It's a Miami player. Kickers, Zulryan Prater. I'll give the edge to Zulryan because I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game. And then the Chiefs defense, which could end up being the difference in this game, got Cam his 24 points last night. Really, really good for a defense, as we know. And, I mean, I honestly think I'm going to give the edge to Cameron on this one. I think Spencer's season is done. Even though I'm rooting for Spencer because I need Cam to lose for my division, but I think Cam gets his third win, and I think Spencer's season is on the tank, if that was a thing for fantasy.
It's not looking good for Spence. It's not looking good at all. When I look at this matchup, I give Allen the edge because he's playing Miami and he rushes a lot. I agree with you about Barkley. He'll pop off. I actually think Tyler Boyd will have a decent week. Golden Tate will probably, I would say, get 8. Zach Ertz over Witten. And even though Cam Joke already has 24 points locked up, I'm going to edge Spencer here.
Okay.
Alright, let's move on to No Fried versus Clap 4. We can really run the hurry up on this one. I'll lead it off. Russell Wilson versus Prescott. Give me a break. Edge Wilson. I mean, for obvious reasons. Ingram versus Hyde. Obviously, Ingram is a guy who has been a part of that big Baltimore running game. I'm going to give him the edge. Josh Howard versus Derrick Henry. If the Titans do one thing well, it's rush the ball with Derrick Henry. Howard has been, or it's Jordan Howard, not Josh. Henry's been better than a lot of people expected. Edge Henry. Larry Fitz, you know, he's been decent with that young rookie quarterback.
Kyler Murray, yes.
Yes, but he doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. And when I look at a guy like Keenan Allen, he is a bigger part of his offense. And I really do think that the Chargers are going to get their shit together this week and win. So I edge Allen. Fuller's boomer bust. Hopkins is the actual number one guy. Edge Hopkins, but man, what a disappointment Hopkins has been for guys that drafted him in the first round. The guy hasn't broken 10 since week 1.
It's funny that he's the person he's facing against in that same position is Will Fuller, the wide receiver who's actually performed much better than DeAndre Hopkins was expected to. So
Will Fuller had one god tier week. He's basically like Sammy Watkins. If you look at his points, everything's below 7 except the he scored 4.
Yeah, no, you're right because he had 14 receptions that game. Jeez.
Popped off.
But that's the thing. I don't trust Deshaun Watson as a consistent passer. I think he's a good player. I just don't. I don't know. It's hard because Will Fuller. I like Will Fuller and I like DeAndre Hopkins, but right now it's a toss-up to me between those two.
Yep. And then,
but I'll give the edge to Hopkins on that one. You sold me whenever I looked at the average of his per week.
Yeah, because you look at overall and it's like, wow, Fuller's been a decent option. Then it's like, oh, he just had one crazy week.
Yeah, it's one outlier.
I would actually edge Marvin Jones over Peterson here. I think the Redskins are just going to get shellacked.
Agreed. Oh, do you think Ingram's going to get more than 4 against Kelsey?
Yeah, I do. Even though he's a little banged up with his knee, he'll be fine this week.
But yeah, I agree with you on the flex too.
Alrighty, and the kickers, Maher will underperform against Gold. Gold is just going to fucking rack up points. And this is an interesting little
defenses that are playing each other.
Yeah, a little interesting mirror. I obviously give it to the Eagles.
Kind of 2 mirror games going on. Or not mirror. The wide receivers though for the Hopkins and Fuller. They got some weird matchups this week.
Yep.
But I'm going to give the edge to Kevin, and I think he gets his 6th win.
Agreed. Let's finish the video. We got you versus Lily. And
oh boy.
Obviously,
already starting off hot with a 3.2 points.
Neither one of you are doing very well. Lindsay already disappointed for you, which really sucks. But if we look at this matchup, Joe Mixon has been disappointing. He'll be outperformed by Marlon Mack. Rodgers should have a good week, should outperform Stafford. I think Edelman will do better than Cooks. Edelman has a weaker matchup, and he's a bigger part of his offense.
And it's a Monday night performance.
Allen Robinson versus Miller, another sort of same team matchup. Obviously, Robinson, the number 1 target, is going to do better than tight ends.
Anthony Miller hasn't even played a game this year.
And as far as the tight ends go, Hooper has been god tier. Cook is out. Lilly might not even replace him. Advantage Hooper. And then Lavy.
That eliminates that 3 points that Lindsay got me.
Yeah, and
it evens out.
And Bell is going to do better, obviously, than the backup for Indy. I mean, we don't even really need. I think you're just gonna win this by like 30, honestly.
Well, there's two positions that I'm starting the actual like starter, and she has the backup of my starter.
Yeah.
Because she has Miller, who's a fifth string wide receiver to Robinson, and then obviously Hines is the backup to Mack. So interesting matchup, but I think you're right. I think I get this easy deserved win.
Indeed, well deserved win. All right, what are the percentage chances you make the playoffs?
I'd say like 15% at max. I would basically have to run the table, win out the rest of the season, maybe lose one more, but until 8-6 is a decent record, but even in this league, that's not good enough sometimes to get the wild card, as we know. So I'm really down to just one loss that I can take, and I will give myself about a 15% chance, if not less.
All right.
To make the.
And the final question of the video: what percent chance do you give Spencer to make the playoffs?
I'll give him 2%, even less.
Really?
Yeah, no offense to Spencer. It's just he's already in a hole. And that division is, it's like I said earlier, it's possible to come back in that division because Kevin. Actually, no, I don't know if it will be able to come back in that division. Now that I actually look at it, but as we talked about earlier, his team is just full of question marks and a lot of misses. We know Spencer, just like Christian, is a guy who's not scared to pull the trigger on a questionable move and try to, boom or bust it. But a lot of his picks this year have not panned out for him. So I don't think, even if he does pick it up later in the season, I don't think he's going to make the playoffs. So I'll say probably 2 to 5%.
Alrighty, and with that, the video closes.